Hello and welcome to VistaTalks, interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world. I'm your host for today, Priscillia Charles, and I'm joined in Studio 2 today by Lucio Bagnulo from Amnesty International. We're delighted to have you in studio with us today. Thank you so much, Lucio.
Thank you very much to you for inviting me, Priscilla, and it's really great to be here.
Thank you, Lucio. So let's move on and get on with the show. So Lucio, I'd like to ask you a few questions about yourself for our audience to get to know you. Can you share a little bit of information about your background and how you came to be interested in the localization industry?
Yeah, of course. Well, I was born in a tourist town in the south of Italy called Ostuni, so a bit of, advertisement, in a humble but very hard-working family where no one actually spoke any foreign languages at all. So since childhood, however, I've always had an interest towards anything from outside Italy, and this usually took the form of tourists holidaying in my hometown. So just to give you an idea, I was the kind of kid or even teenager running after, poor tourists, in order to practice my broken English or French. I then realized that, what I had thought to be an interest in all things foreign was actually my passion for languages. And I was lucky to be able to follow my passion in my studies. And it was actually during my BA in Applied Languages for Business Mediation that I was introduced to and fell in love with translation, thanks to one of the best professors I ever had, Natasha Rasky, who is now a dear friend of mine. And she taught an inspiring course in French language and translation at University of Perugia back then. So I then obtained my master's degree in translation in 2009 from the University of Bologna. I've lived abroad a few years in order to hone my work in languages, and then I moved on and I went on to complete my second master's degree, an MA in translation and interpreting from the University of Westminster in London. So I then worked as a freelance translator, terminologist, interpreter, and translation project manager, because I wanted to see how things were on the other side of the desk. Which is quite different. I then became assistant operations manager, with special focus on actually translation quality assurance processes. So a lot of different roles, but I enjoyed them very much, all of them. But I yearned to apply my specialist knowledge to a meaningful cause, and my dreams were actually answered when in 2014 I joined Amnesty International to fill their newly created post of head of translation.
Fantastic. What a journey. Thank you so much for sharing this, Lucio. Very inspiring. So as you just mentioned, you're currently the head of translation at Amnesty International. Amnesty International is a global movement of more than 8 million people, present in over 150 countries and territories, and who campaigns for human rights. So can you tell us a little bit about the organizations and about your current role and responsibilities as head of translations?
So I think everyone, almost everyone knows about Amnesty International, but I don't think everyone is familiar with some of the key historic events that contributed to the organization's exponential growth and sustained leadership in the field of human rights over the past 60 years. So if you don't mind, I would like to go through some of these key dates to then move on to talk about my current role. On the 28th of May 1961, the British lawyer Peter Benenson publishes the founding article, The Forgotten Prisoners, in the Observer, after reading about two students, Portuguese students, who had been jailed for having allegedly, drunk a toast to liberty. So 1 year later, in 1963, the International Secretariat of Amnesty International is created in London, the then headquarters. And only 1 year later, Amnesty is awarded the consultative status by the UN, the Council of Europe, and UNESCO. Then a few years later, in 1977, Amnesty is awarded the Nobel Peace Prize for its defense of human dignity against torture. And on 2011, Amnesty celebrates its 50th anniversary. So today, basically, we are a movement, to a 59-year-old movement and organization. And in 2014, a big restructuring process begins, the so-called moving closer to the ground, which leads to a massive decentralization from the London International Secretariat to brand new International Secretariat offices closer to where human rights abuses are perpetrated, and also aimed at transforming Amnesty in a truly global human rights movement. So today we have 17 regional offices which are fully operational. So London is not, the headquarters, the only headquarters anymore, but we have now 17 different headquarters. And today, as we were saying at the beginning, we are a global movement of more than 7 million people campaigning in over 150 countries and territories for a world in which human rights can be enjoyed by all. So, and it was, after this little introduction, it was exactly also in 2014, during this restructuring process, or actually at the end of it, that I joined Amnesty International. So in my capacity of head of translation, I oversee the translation service of Amnesty International to ensure a successful provision of high-quality translations to the organization. Of course, I don't do this alone. I'm fortunate to rely on a highly skilled team of in-house translators and regional language coordinators operating from various locations worldwide, including Beirut, Hong Kong, London, Madrid, where I'm based, Nairobi and Paris, as well as our extensive network of freelance translators all over the world. So beyond the day-to-day management of translation operations, my responsibilities also involve, for example, meaningfully strategically contributing to the objective of the Language Resource Center management team, leading on all translation-related discussions with key stakeholders, teams, programs, where it is necessary to explain, for example, or emphasize translation best practice protocols, so that then the commissioning, translation commissioning process works as efficiently as possible, and leading also on global and regional planning and forecast activities with the support of regional coordinators, elaborating on elaborating new analysis or analysis of research-based strategies, all what concerns, for example, reviewing the LSE translation tools portfolio in order to best meet the organization language requirements or translation requirements. And then I also take care of all the translation, or I lead with the support of my team, of course, on translation sourcing strategies, translation grade frameworks, and so on and so forth. So I really enjoyed that my role is diverse. Covers, yes, it's very diverse, covers such a vast array of responsibilities that every day is a new challenge, and I definitely don't get bored.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much. That sounds fascinating. So now I'd like to talk about the current global health crisis that unfortunately so many of us are going through. Can you tell us a little bit about the actions that Amnesty International has taken in response to this crisis? Because I understand that the role of Amnesty must be so important at the moment.
Yeah, the way governments decide to respond to COVID-19 pandemic has the potential to impact the human rights of millions of people. Amnesty International is closely monitoring then government responses to the crisis, and is denouncing those who don't fulfill their obligations, or even worse, those who are using this crisis for their own interests. So in addition, Amnesty has published recommendations for national governments, urging them to ensure that their responses to COVID-19 are in line with international and regional human rights obligations. Last but not least, as usual, Amnesty is currently also informing people about their rights and on how human rights can help protect us in this situation. So, for example, information about right to health, the right to access information, the right to work, the right at work, etc. And to see a bit, to give you an idea of how all of this work then impacts or how translation, supports actually this work. In the past, only in the past 3 weeks, this has materialized as over 150,000 words of COVID-19 related content only, translated into, across more than 10 language combinations for a total of, 158 pieces of work, etc., mainly media material. But there are also, for example, very interesting human rights education courses on COVID-19 and human rights, which I really recommend anyone to watch.
Thank you so much. So we're talking about the current situation and how countries are handling the situation differently. So do you have yourself any thoughts on the current situation and in the relationship of in the different ways in which, the governments are and the policies, the advice are obviously not necessarily consistent around the world, unfortunately?
Yeah, well, I genuinely think that there should be no room for selfishness, disrespect, racism, xenophobia, stigmatization, and other similar plagues, both in general, but especially at a time like this. At a time like this, I mean, this crisis should unite us more than divide us, really. So and. In addition, as we know, COVID-19 does not respect borders. It does not differentiate among ethnicities, ages, gender, and so on and so forth. And it is only through a collective and coordinated, effort that it can be solved. So, I think we should be really coordinated and, work together.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So now I'd like to talk about a different topic. At the beginning of the year, you attended the Think Global Forum Amsterdam, and we were delighted to have you as a keynote speaker. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience and of attending the forum, since it was your first time?
Yeah, well, the forum was absolutely an exciting and amazing experience, to tell you the truth. I would strongly recommend it to anyone thinking of attending, first of all, because not only does it mean privileged access to world leaders and experts of the highest caliber, but to me it was also a great opportunity to broaden my horizons and knowledge, learn from others, contribute to meaningful discussions, and why not also join such a dynamic and exceptional community. So I would like really to thank the organizers of the Think Global Forum once again, including yourself, for inviting me to be keynote speaker at this all-important event, really.
Thank you so much. We're delighted that the event was a success and that you enjoyed it. And we look forward to seeing you at another event very soon when the current situation improves in the future. So in your keynote, I noted that you spoke about how from the very beginning, Amnesty recognized languages as being a core asset, that it acknowledged and recognized languages as an instrumental tool to achieve a greater human rights impact worldwide. And that something you mentioned earlier on in this interview, this led to the creation of the Language Policy and Strategy in 2007, and then to the creation of the Language Resource Center, which is a virtual network of language experts. So I'm very curious, I'd like you to tell me a little bit more about this center.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Indeed, the LRC is a virtual network of language professionals operating in various locations around the world. The core function of the LRC is to provide translation, interpreting, production, digital services, and other language services tailored to multiple channels and multiple audiences. So we strive to make the most effective and strategic use of language and production resources, delivering high quality content and promoting best practice in the language field with an innovative and multidisciplinary approach. So translation is quite obviously a key service offered by the LSE, and just like the center itself, translation activity is managed by a network team of experienced in-house translators and also translation project coordinators across various local offices, who then work with and oversee our professional freelance translators all over the world.
Thank you so much. It sounds like a fantastic resource to have. So thank you for looking after this. So now we're talking about your role in Amnesty International and the role of Amnesty in general. So can you tell us for yourself, how important is the role of the localization industry in helping, send across essential messages to, that nonprofit organizations are, are trying to, like basically trying to spread the word and trying to send essential messages, whether it's in the current situation that we're going through or in general?
Well, to answer, your question in 2 words, really, it's really critical. That's what I would say. And as I often say, also, without translation, Amnesty's message will not go very far. And this is also the case, I'm sure, for many other NGOs out there. Language definitely matters a lot, and it is vital that financial resources be put into it, really.
Thank you. Yes, it is vital, absolutely. And as you mentioned, Amnesty is involved in so many different areas and is providing so much content. So I'd like to talk about the different types of material that you're providing, because it is so vital in so many areas of our lives. I understand that you're in over 150 countries. So how are you managing this from a global perspective? There's so much and so many different areas.
It's a lot indeed. So, I mean, just to give you an idea, a very simplified idea. So the LSE manages all the translation requests that come from the International Secretaries team, who are basically our direct clients, to put it that way. So as I briefly mentioned earlier, there are global teams, most of which are based in London, in the London office, and then there are regional teams based in the various regional offices around the world. So all of these teams are our clients. And we, of course, have various workflows depending on the type of documents or the type of material, actually. So, for example, we have a workflow for what we call planned material. So the material we have an idea, we know when exactly, or more or less exactly, it will come in for translation. And then another workflow for what we call fast-track material, mainly, for example, media material, which are really, fast, with a fast turnaround time, etc., or urgent actions, anything which is urgent. And then another, a type of workflow, for example, could be the crisis response, type of material. So even more, quick turnaround, or, completely unplanned, of course, because, it's a response to a crisis, and so on and so forth. But we also, manage translation requests coming from what we call Amnesty's entities. So, for example, Amnesty sections, which are like Amnesty France, Amnesty Ireland, and so on and so forth. Or national offices like Amnesty Brazil, Amnesty Nigeria, which are not sectioned. So additionally, in order to manage all this incoming flow of documents or requests, also in order with the aim of streamlining ways of working, we have introduced a single commissioning system for translations and other related services, because we also translate, platforms, etc., localize them, so on and so forth. And so teams requiring the translation of their, output they only need to complete a very intuitive and straightforward online translation request form, which acts as a single point of contact and filters translation requests into and out of any language.
Wow, thank you so much. Well, that is absolutely fascinating, and that is, I'm realizing the amount of content and work that Amnesty does. So thank you so much. Now, Amnesty states that whether you're working from home, out of work, self-isolated, or caring for others, obviously those are very lonely and uncertain times. Life may feel it's on hold right now for many of us, and but the fight for new human rights never stops, and even in times of uncertainty, Amnesty will continue to call out human rights violators wherever they see them. So thank you so much, Lucio, for all the fantastic work that you do, all the teams at Amnesty Internationals. It is so important. Thank you. I have one more question to ask you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today, whether it's Amnesty related or about yourself, that you would like to share for our audience today?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for creating this space for this, great chat we have just had, which I hope the audience will find interesting. And I would also like to take this opportunity to wish everyone the very best in these challenging times. Stay healthy, both mentally and physically. Be as physically active as your local restrictions allow. And most importantly, keep yourself and others safe.
Thank you so much, Lucio. So it's been an absolute pleasure to have Lucio on the show today. So thank you for spending time with us, telling us about the wonderful work that you do with Amnesty International. And it is unfortunately the end of today's show already with Lucio Bagnulo from Amnesty International, Head of Translation at Amnesty International. So please make sure to tune again to listen or view this Vistatec show and the next one, where we'll be discussing more interesting discussions with interesting people from all around the world.